All right, so hello, thank you so much for watching. My name is Ava Weston, Economic Development Specialist at the Placer Business Resource Center. Welcome to our Whisking Up Business, a recipe for food operations success webinar, a part of our Roadmap to Success series. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview of our agenda today. First, my colleague Daniela Stepik and I will be providing a brief overview of the Placer Business Resource Center and the services that we offer. Then we'll turn it over to our environmental health team, or Justin is here, Justin Hansen, to guide us through the process of getting a food operations business up and running in Placer County. And then we're going to wrap up with a Q&A for anyone that may have questions. All right, so before we dive into hearing about from environmental health, we wanted to provide a brief introduction to the Placer Business Resource Center, as we're a great first point of contact for anybody that's conducting business in Placer County. And we want to paint a picture of the role that we play to support our local businesses so that you can walk away today knowing that we are an ongoing free service that you can come to for really anything that you need. So a little bit about us. Again, we're the Placer Business Resource Center, or PBRC for short, and we're a program run out of the Placer County Office of Economic Development. We're here to offer support to small businesses and to get them connected with resources they need. We offer a range of services, all of which again are free, to include webinars like these, free one-on-one advising. That advising is meant to address your unique needs. So we'll meet with you, figure out where you're at, and figure out what resources may be able to help to bring your vision to life. Hiring assistance as well through our Business Advantage Network division, which is held under our Employment Services. And they offer a range of programs that Daniela is going to touch on later. And we offer navigation around licensing and permitting as well, and help you navigate tools that may help with that, as well as get you in contact with the right folks. So next slide, please. So just really quick, our hours of operation, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday by appointment only. Our website has a contact us form that you can fill out, and that goes straight to our inbox so our whole team can see and we can get back to you as soon as possible to figure out a time that we can meet via Zoom or via phone call. But if you prefer in person, on Wednesdays, we're offering walk-ins at our Rockland location. So that's 1000 Sunset Boulevard. And then on Fridays, we are closed. All right, so now my colleague Daniela Stepik is going to provide a brief overview of the type of resources that we can get you connected with. So there's going to be a lot that we cover here, but this is just to give you a kind of an idea of the resources that we can get you connected with. So our job is when you come to us, we're here to help you figure out which one of these is going to be the most useful for where you're at, and maybe which ones you want to start with, which ones maybe you want to use later down the line. But take it away, Danielle.
Okay, thanks, Ava. And thank you for the introduction. So, you'll see a few slides, three, to be exact, that have different resources on it. But those are not the only resources we have, and I want to make sure that it's clear that this is very like just a few that we touch a lot on, but there are other ones depending on what type of business you have, kind of what kind of questions you have, and then where you're located too can also affect the type of resources that we share with you. So I will start off with the business assistance one. So there are a handful of SBDCs all over the place. So they're small business development centers geared towards helping businesses start or expand. The one that we work with a lot is Sierra Small Business Development Center, Sierra SBDC for short. And they offer free advising to anyone who wants to sign up. It only takes a few minutes to do so. You go on their website, you put in like a little bit of information about yourself, and then you can schedule an intake specialist call. The intake specialist will talk to you about 15 minutes or so, just getting an idea of what your business is, where you are in the process. Do you have a business plan? Are you looking to be an LLC or sole proprietorship? Things like that. And then you can tell them also, like, I need additional assistance with marketing, and they can find you someone who is in that realm. So I went through that experience saying I need someone with marketing, and they set me up with like um, a part-time professor at Sac State, for example. So depending on what you need, they can connect you with the right folks. So chambers of commerce, they there's ones for each city in the town of Loomis. So Rockland, Lincoln, Roseville, Auburn, Colfax, and I feel like I'm missing one. But we also have our partners in NTCA in the Tahoe area. And they are made up, their members are made up of the business community. So you'll meet all kinds of folks, and it's a great networking opportunity. You go to their events, you meet other businesses. You can also be on their membership list, their directories. They'll promo different events going on that are happening, and it's really good to get involved with the chambers of commerce in your area. We also have the Service Corps of Retired Executives. SCORE. They're very similar to SBDC, where they have like free mentoring and other events and things like that that you can sign up for. And they are folks, it's in the title of retired executive. So they've had the higher level positions, a lot of them, whether CEOs or managers, and they can provide you that guidance as well if you have questions. And then from the federal level, we have the Small Business Administration, SBA. They have some great resources online that can help direct you to. So one of the things I'd like to point out to people is the 10-step guide to like starting a business, and it walks you pretty thoroughly, like almost like a checklist of what you need to do. So for trainings and workshops, we have the Placer Business Resource Center, which is us today. SBDC, SCORE, and SBA has a learning center where it has different modules where you can go self-paced courses and learning about how to do business. And then so for licensing and permitting, we have the business licenses. So depending on where you're located, if you're within city limits, you'll go through the city's business license department to get your business license. But if you're in unincorporated Placer County, you'll go through the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office. And folks might not know if they are unincorporated or within city limits, or it might be, Roseville address or Auburn address or whatever it is, but actually be unincorporated Placer County. So if you're not sure, feel free to reach out to the BRC or Ava or myself directly if you're not sure. But yeah, always make sure you get a business license so people know that you're a legitimate business, and we can get those squared away if you have any more questions. Fictitious business name will go through the county clerk's recorder's office. We actually did a webinar about 2 weeks ago now that walks you through the steps on how to do fictitious business name. And then we'll have our permits. So they're online. It's a free tool. It's Cal Gold. You can look at what kind of permits you might need. So you'll put in like your location, so it'd be like Placer County or unincorporated Placer County, and then your business type. So you'll fill in that information, and it gives you a general idea of what you will need. But also reach out to your local agencies, again, BRC or your cities, about what you might need. And then environmental health. So Justin's here today to talk about for like food related businesses, what permits and the processing and all of that stuff is going to look like. So I won't steal his thunder too much. And then our general resources is the NorCal Entrepreneur Club. You can see resources online of that. There's multiple like local agencies that are partnering with that. So you can find a bunch on there. We have our entrepreneur development group through the Roseville Area Chamber. I went to one of their meetings a little bit ago, and it happens to be, I believe, quarterly, where you can sit in a room about, I think there's like 15 to 20 people, a small group, where different business owners are in different places or stages of their business, and they had questions. They ran into an issue, and then they're brainstorming with the group of like what to do, or they're just, promoting what they have and sharing that stuff. So it was really good to hear from other people. And I really want to emphasize that you learn best from other peers, at least I do myself, and you can hear what they went through and how they got through it and just getting their advice. And I think it's a great way to learn the ropes, but also network. We have our Growth Factory and our Roseville Venture Lab as well. You can look to see what's going on at those locations and how they can get connected through those as well. So Okay, and then funding. So we do get a lot of questions about funding, and to be on the record, we don't have any current funding through the county right now for small businesses. But if you have questions on like where to go, where to find grants or loans and things like that, we can certainly help. So one of the ones we advocate for is the SBDC's Finance Center. We can get connected with advisors who will help you find different sources. And they also have a tool online that's free. You sign up, takes a couple minutes too, and you can find an inventory of government grants and loans. And then we have the California Office of Small Business Advocate. While they don't have current funding when I check last, they still have a page of for grants that you can check, ever so often, to see if there's any availability of funding there. The SBA has guaranteed loans. People tend to shy away from loans, but that's a potential option as well. And there's also an online tool, the California Small Business Loan Match, if you're interested in more loans. And then hiring and workforce, we did have a hiring and workforce webinar on May 8th, and it's recorded. You can find it on our website, and you can hear from the Business Advantage Network and Golden Sierra Job Training Agency about different hiring workforce related resources. Okay, so that should finish it for the webinars, or sorry, the resources. And then Ava, was this me or was this you?
I can go ahead. Sure. Our upcoming webinar is just really quick in case you are interested. On June 25th, we have how to write a winning business plan. We're going to hear from one of our partners over at the Small Business Administration. That one's at noon. July 9th, also at noon, we're going to be exploring QuickBooks and accounting from a representative from the Service Corps of Retired Executives, or SCORE for short. And we are also in the works of planning more after that. The key is we have to hear from you on what topics you're interested in hearing about. So please reach out to us either through our contact us form on our website or via email at brcinfo@placer.ca.gov.
And then I can do this part. So I don't know why every time the name for our social media handles always comes out really funky, but you can call us at 916-770-8380 or email us at brcinfo@placer.ca.gov. And then we also have our social media. So LinkedIn is Placer for Business, and that is totally geared towards businesses and like important information that we think you guys should know. Whereas our Facebook and Instagram is Placer Business Resource Center, which has like events and different things, but it's more, social, if that makes any sense. So, okay. And then, as Ava mentioned, it was the webinar feedback. So if you want to scan the QR code, you can give us some ideas of what you want to see in the future, what you have questions on, because other folks might have questions too on the same thing. So if we see certain topics coming up a lot, we'll try to schedule a webinar on that. And then we also have a newsletter that you can hear about some grants, upcoming events, the latest and greatest in economic development in Placer County. So if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up. And if you missed the QR codes today, feel free to email us and we'll send you those as well. So next is our presentation with Justin Hansen. He's a registered environmental health specialist with our environmental health team. And so, Justin, I will let you take it away.
Right, great, thank you. Yeah, my name is Justin Hansen. I'm with the Environmental Health Department, and I've been an environmental health specialist in our consumer protection program since 2010. And yeah, just part of what environmental health does. Our team is the consumer protection team, so we do body art inspections, swimming pool inspections, and then we do retail food, which is the premise we're talking about today. So we go to the next slide. Yeah, so this section, so this is on what a permit is for a retail food facility, and it's an authorization from our department to operate your food facility in Placer County. And anyone that's we have on our stores, prepares, packages, serves, vends, or provides food to the public needs to get a health permit. And that's for retail food. If you are making food for wholesale, that's a separate, the state permits those. So this is just for retail food. And the code that we follow is the California Retail Food Code, or the Cal Code for short, and that has all of the food safety, sanitation, and permitting requirements. And the permits have to be obtained before you begin operation of the food facility, and those are renewed annually. Next slide, please. So yeah, so when do you need a health permit? So we covered a little bit in the last slide. So whenever you're providing food to the public, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, whether you're giving it away or selling it, you need to get a permit. Yeah, even sampling at events. And then some of the examples and the permits we'll cover today. So food trucks and carts, temporary food facilities, cottage food, which is food made at home, and brick and mortar, which are the standard restaurants, those kind of permits. All right, so yeah, so now so next slide we'll get each of those individual ones and how to apply for permits and what you need to do in order to get a permit for those. Next slide, please. So temporary food facilities is the first one. So that is like selling food like a fair. It's at a community event, so a fair, cultural festival, farmers markets, the people selling prepared food at farmers markets. Those are all temporary food facilities. So next slide. Oh, next. All right. So to get a temporary food facility permit, there's an application that's on our website, and we have a link to our website on the last slide. So that application involves giving us your information, like name, mailing address, what community event you'll be operating at. And the community events, so those are permitted also by our department. There's a event organizer who fills out an application with the event and when the days are. And then they tell us which food vendors are going to be at that event. And all the food vendors have to have this temporary food facility permit. And then the other part of that temporary food facility vendor application is we want to know what the menu, what types of food you'll be selling, where you'll be getting the food from, how it's prepared, how it's stored, all of those things. And then a layout of your booth. So depending on what type of food you'll be selling and how much food preparation you'll be doing, kind of determines what kind of booth you have. So some places have like structures that you can work in. Some you'll bring food trailers, food trucks. And then a really common one is like a pop-up tent we'll set up. And if you'll be doing food preparation, opening food, it needs to have sides, floors, a hand washing station, and then how you'll be keeping the foods cold, like ice chests or refrigeration. And then the details of what event you'll be at. And there are 2 permits. So you can apply each event, or if you only be doing one event, or there's an annual permit where you submit one application and then it's good for an entire year from July 1st to June 30th. And what type of food can be sold at temporary food facilities is pretty much any type of food. The only difference is the different types of food and different levels of preparation require more extensive booth setups. So if you're just selling prepackaged food, you just need to have an overhead protection, which is a tent or a trailer or something along those lines. And if you'll be doing full food preparation, then you need a full enclosure, so dust, and insects, and those types of things cannot get into the booth. Okay, next slide. Okay, so that was just basic rundown of the temporary food facility. So the next one is a permanent food facility or brick and mortar facility, and that like a fixed location. So that's restaurants, bakeries, grocery stores, convenience stores, all of those types of things. That's the next slide. All right, so the permitting process, if you want to get a health permit for a fixed food facility or brick and mortar, there's kind of 2 ways. One way is building a brand new facility or renovating a space that wasn't a food facility into a food facility. And the other way is like buying a business that was previously a food facility and changing ownership. So I wanted to go over both of the requirements for those. So for a new facility, the first step is you apply for a plan review. And we have the application and a lot of information on our website on what's required for those, but we need like plans for the facility, like with showing the plumbing, the floors, walls, finishes, what types of equipment, the menu that you'll be serving, hood details if you have those. And usually part of that is also getting other department approvals, like a building permit, fire department approval. And that's all done concurrently. So you submit a plan review application, we review it, review the plans, and then issue either a correction letter if there's corrections we need, or we send you an approval letter. And then once you have the approval letter, you're approved by our department to construct the facility. You also, as I said, need like your building department approval and all of those things. And we just check for all the Cal code requirements. Once the construction's done or almost done, we do a final inspection of the new space and verify the hot water, everything's done according to the plans. We're kind of ready to operate as a permitted food facility. You submit a permit application, and then you get your health permit, which is an annual permit. And part of that, we have at the end, it's the same for both, how the inspections go. And then for an existing food facility, you submit a application, you get any other department approvals, and usually we'll do a change of ownership inspection. So once we get the application, we'll contact you and we'll meet you at the restaurant to kind of see what's there, see if there's any changes that need to be made before we can change the permit into the new owner's name. And if you are going to be making remodeling, changing equipment, changing the menu, then you would have to go through that same plan review process. And part of for the existing facilities, we like to recommend people to contact our department before kind of one of the first steps to review and talk with the district inspector to see if there's any issues, any things that had come up in previous health inspections that would need to be addressed before you take ownership. And we also have the last 1 or 2 years, I can't quite remember, but of our routine inspections on our website that you can look up to see if there was any of those types of issues. Then once you have the permit, you get inspected around every 6 months or so, a routine health inspection to make sure all the food safety and sanitation, all of those requirements are being met. And then any additional inspections are performed as often as we need to do if there was anything we had to go back and recheck or anything like that. And this presentation was about the permits, and then there's the whole, after you have the permit, all the food safety, food handling, all of those requirements, and the inspections that you have to follow. So next slide. Okay, so the next is mobile food facilities. There's like food trucks, food trailers. They're required to be operating in conjunction with a commissary. And there's some examples of different types of food trucks. And then it also includes carts, like push carts, hot dog carts, coffee carts, those kinds of things. Next slide. Yep, and there's this example of the two. So a full food truck and then kind of an open push cart. And there's 2 separate types of permits that we have for those. Next slide. All right, so the permitting process for either a food truck or a food cart. So if you have a brand new food truck or a brand new cart that has not been permitted before, it has to go through the same plan review process, just like a brick and mortar would, with plans for the truck, and then written operational procedures and a copy of a menu and what types of food you'll be selling, so we can make sure what you're proposing equipment wise and layout wise matches the types of foods that you'll be preparing. If you want to get an existing permitted mobile food facility, the permit changed into your name. We don't require a plan review, but you still need to make sure it meets all the requirements. And if you're going to make any changes to the food truck, we would want to look at those to make sure that they still meet the retail food code requirements. And then, we have just to verify with the previous owner that it had a permit and where it was permitted, if it was permitted in Placer County or Sacramento County, or if it was permitted in a different state we'd want to check that. And also, if we have on the other slides, for the food trucks that you'll be working inside of, they need to have a housing and community development sticker, which is an inspection that their agency does, which is a state agency, to make sure the food truck meets all their health and safety requirements. And we need that inspection to be done before we can permit the food truck. Next slide. Right, so so this section is on compact mobile food, and it's a fairly new type of permit, I think in the last year or two. But this is for push carts, small, like hot dog carts, those types of things. There's a couple of examples on there of different types of food carts. It could even just be a showcase, a table, just anything that's non-motorized. So there's a permit that's required for those. And I say to go on last one, I'll go over for both on this one. So the commissary, these have to have a commissary. For the food trucks, they have to be a permitted commissary. They can be usually in Placer County. If you're getting the truck permitted and the commissary is in Sacramento County, that's okay. We just need a signed commissary agreement, which the forms on our website, where the owner of the commissary signs and gives us a copy of their health permit. For the compact mobile food facilities, the commissary could also be a cottage food operation, which is the home-based permit. Has to be the Class B, which we'll go over with the two classes of permits. And you can have up to 2 compact mobiles per cottage food operation. And then a lot of the things are not required, but they're required if you're doing certain food processes. So warewashing, depending on the menu, if you have things you'll need to wash, you'll have to have a 3-compartment sink, wash, rinse, and sanitize, or adequate backup supplies. If you're gonna have hot or cold holding, you have to have mechanical refrigeration and hot holding, so not an ice chest, but something that you plug in. You're required to have a food handler card, which is an online food safety course. And for food trucks and for compact mobiles, if you're going to be in a location for more than an hour, you have to have access to a restroom. And if it's at a business, we would need something from the business that's saying you are allowed to use the restroom. And these are inspected annually for both types. And there is an exception if the display area is less than 25 square feet and everything you sell is pre-packaged and what we call non-potentially hazardous or shelf stable. It doesn't require refrigeration or hot holding. You're not required to get a health permit for those. But if you are going to do that, it's best to call our office and just verify that you don't need a permit for that. And then you also need permission for where you set up from the city, if it's on city property, or the county, or a business in a parking lot. Okay, next slide, please. And there's a couple of keys to success this is mostly for compact mobiles. Make sure all the employees have food handler cards. This goes for all health permits. Anybody that's sick, even if like a runny nose, sneezing, if they have stomach issues, they shouldn't be working with or handling food. So either have another employee work until the employee feels better or don't operate that day. You're required to have a first aid kit and no insects, rodents, any vermin, anything like that are on the cart. The menu, like we said, the menu determines what the cart requirements are. So if you're cooking hot dogs, it's a different requirement than if you're selling chips and bottled water. And for every permit as well, all the food that's sold has to be from an approved source. So that's nothing made at home unless it's with the permitted cottage food. Where the food comes from is permitted, usually by the state with the processed food registration permit. And then physical requirements for the cart, really it just can't be raw wood. It has to be something that's cleanable and non-absorbent. And it's usually metal. And if you have to have a hand wash sink or 3-compartment sink, you have to have at least a 5-gallon water tank and a 7.5-gallon wastewater tank. And then for food trucks, there's a separate requirement I can't recall the number of gallons, but so many gallons for the potable water and then 1.5 times for the wastewater. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the last one is kind of the biggest one, the cottage food program. So these are baked goods, like I said, non-potentially hazardous foods that are allowed to be made at home and sold under this permit. The next slide. So there's two types of cottage food permits. There's an A, CFO-A, which is for direct sales only. So if you are going to be selling, I think, online or at farmers markets or community events, this would be a CFO-A throughout California. There's a maximum income that you have for these, and it's $75,000. You get a registration number. There's no home inspection required, but on a later slide, we have the application process that's needed for those. And then a CFO-B, which is direct sales and also indirect sales. So you could have your CFO-B and sell it at a convenience store or a grocery store. The maximum income is $150,000, and those require a home inspection. And CFO-Bs are the ones you can use as commissaries for a compact mobile food operation. Next slide. Okay, so we have the list coming up. It's a long list. For cottage foods, there's an approved list from the California Department of Public Health that lists all the foods that are allowed to be made under a cottage food permit. So before you apply and pay, you want to make sure that the food you want to make is on the approved list. So you can check the list. You can always call us or send us an email with what types of food you want to sell and the ingredients, and we can make sure that that's on the approved list. And then take the online food handler card course, and then create a floor plan of your kitchen and then anywhere else that you're going to store food or utensils that you'll use for the cottage food operation. Next slide. So this is the approved cottage food list. And it's pretty small and hard to read, but it has different sections: baked goods, candy, and those types of things. So these are the ones. So what you make has to be what is on this list, and it can't alter from that. So if you make something that's not on this list, even if it's not potentially hazardous, we can't approve it unless we see it on the list. And there is a process if you want to make a food that's not on this list to get it added through a form you send to the state. If you're interested in that or want more information, please let us know. We could help you with that. The next slide, sorry. So permitting requirements for a CFO. So an application, part of the application, the food handler card, the floor plan, and then a label. And we have a slide on what needs to be on the labels. A label for each product. So if you want to sell snickerdoodles and chocolate chip cookies and oatmeal cookies, we need a label for each separate item that you'll be selling. And then if you are on a private well, there's additional requirements, testing, agreement forms, and those types of things. So if you're on a private well, before call, email, we can let you know what those requirements are for the well. If you're on city water, you don't have to worry about those requirements. Next slide. So labels. So on the right-hand side is an example of a label, which has everything that needs to be on there. We have a list of what needs to be on the label, and that gets reviewed as part of your permitting application. So before you get a permit to sell, your label gets approved. Name and contact information, the common name of the food, and then all of the ingredients by weight. And that's the same as on any label of foods that you buy from the store, from the most to the least amount with each ingredient. And then an allergen statement, again, here contains wheat, milk, soy, eggs, tree nuts. So any allergens need to be labeled. The weight, and then kind of what makes it different from other labels, it needs to say made in a home kitchen in 12-point font, your permit or registration number, and the city, state, and zip, and then who issued your permit. So that is the label. And that if you have trouble with the label and you can't quite figure out how to make it meet all the requirements, we are here to help you with that. So just let us know. We'll help you with your label and make sure it meets the requirements. Okay, next slide. Oh, that was it. So that was all for all the different permits. There was one permit I realized as I was going through that we forgot to include, and that's a catering permit. That mostly follows the mobile food facility rules. It needs to operate from a commissary. All the food's prepared at the commissary, and then it's sold at private events. If you have any catering questions or anything like that, please let me know. And here's our contact information, and our website's on the bottom. And on our website, it has a tab for restaurants and food facilities. It has all the plan review requirements, all the applications, guidance documents for how to submit it, what types of floors and those types of things. So yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Justin. So we're gonna go into Q&A. I'm gonna stop sharing so we can all see each other right now. So if anyone has a question, and you can feel free to raise your hand. The raise your hand function is at the bottom of the screen with a little hand icon. So feel free to do that if you would like to speak. But I should probably take myself so you can see me. But I'll start with like two initial questions just to kick it off there. First is more of a clarifying one. So for the approved cottage foods list, is that on the website as well, like easy to find for folks?
I believe it is. I think we have a section. I haven't looked lately. And it's also the list comes from the California Department of Public Health. They have that on their website as well. If it's not there, I'll check it and make sure it's because that's a pretty important list
Yeah.
before you
Right.
apply. So,
And then like a lot of the businesses that we talk to, they sounds like they're doing a cottage food, so it's like kind of nice to have that list handy, and that I could share with them. And then my
yeah.
second question was more on the timing of things. So for example, if they're doing like a temporary food facility for an event or something like that, how much
Oh, yeah.
time like how much time or like should someone like apply for a permit? And like others for others as well, like
Yeah.
if they're doing a facility, how long do you think it takes to like put in a like a food like a restaurant or something? And
Yeah, I can go. So for the temporary food events, we want the application for the vendors at least 2 weeks before the event. So there's time to review it. If we need you to change the booth or have questions about the menu, there's a little bit of time to process those. If you're an event coordinator, you want to have an event, we want those a month ahead of time. For a brick and mortar, for a plan review, submittal, the time frame is the longest a plan review can be is 20 working days. But usually we do those faster. We try to get those done depending on how extensive they are. We try to get them done a little bit faster, but the maximum amount of time is 20 days. And if there's corrections, it's another 20 days from that submittal. For a change of ownership for a food facility, those can be done fairly quickly, depending on if you're buying like a hamburger restaurant and you're just changing the permit into your name and you're not changing anything and there's no big changes that need to be made, it's done like right away as soon as the payment's received.
Mhm.
And I should mention, so the permits, when you get a permit, it's in your name, and they don't transfer if you buy a business into the new owner's name. The new owner has to apply for their own permit in their name for any business. And then the mobiles and the cottage food are kind of along the same time frames. Sometimes the cottage foods take a little bit longer because the labeling and the well testing requirements. But just as quickly as things can get submitted, they are able to get approved.
okay, cool. Thank you for explaining the timing. I think a lot of the questions we get is how long is this going to take, right? And so we're like, not sure. Let's talk to environmental health or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And depending on what issues arise, right, it could also affect the timeline, like you were hinting at.
Yeah, the biggest one is the temporary food vendors, the 2 weeks,
Mhm.
because a lot of times we get less time than that, and it gets a little harder to issue the approval. So the 2 weeks for those is kind of the big one
Okay.
because of the events on a certain day. So
Yeah, right. Okay, so that was it for my question. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Doesn't look like we have any other hands raised. So we'll just cut it off here then. Thank you, Justin, for the presentation. But like we mentioned, we'll get the recording out to folks and then post it on our website. So feel free to, watch it back and send us a message too if something else came up, and we'll pass it around as well. So thank you, Justin, and
Yeah.
have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.